After many years of my father allowing his wife's toxic behavior to continue, I made the difficult decision to cut off all contact with her. This decision came to a head when she attacked my child during a dispute over our upcoming wedding. I attempted to share this experience on social media through a different account a few days ago, but it didn't work out as I had hoped, and considering the sensitive nature of the situation, I understand why. I have since come to the conclusion that my wife, Jane, and I did the right thing by going no contact, so this will be my final attempt to share our story. I have made some adjustments and added more details while ensuring that all names are changed for privacy. My stepmother, who is 49 years old, has been very controlling since she married my dad. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host all family gatherings and holidays, which has created a lot of discomfort for me over the years. I never particularly enjoyed these family events even when I was growing up. My stepmother gets very upset if anyone voices any complaints about her plans, but for my dad's sake, I have tried to humor her. He believes that this helps her feel included, but it often feels like a burden. I am 28 years old and engaged to my fiancée, Jane, who is 26. We got engaged in early 2021, but shortly after, Jane became pregnant, which led us to postpone our wedding to focus on our child for a while. Because of this, we have been engaged for a long period. From the very beginning, my stepmother has tried to take control of our wedding plans. She has complained about our choices, contacted our wedding planner without our permission, and even showed up unannounced at Jane's dress appointments. Despite our repeated requests for her to back off, my dad wants us to accommodate her feelings. My stepmother feels resentful that she is not in charge of our wedding or being called the mother of the groom in the invitations. Along with our baby boy, we also look after Luke, who is 4 years old. Luke is Jane's half-brother, and she gained custody of him a few months into our relationship after his parents tragically passed away. During the pandemic, I moved in with Jane and Luke, and I have been a part of his life since he was a baby. While he doesn't call me dad, we care for him deeply and consider him part of our family. Unfortunately, my stepmother does not share this affection. She openly dislikes Luke and even accused Jane of trapping her way into our family by having our son. This accusation only intensified after our baby was born. My dad gets along well with Jane and loves the kids, but my stepmother has insisted that he refuse to babysit Luke. Because of this, we have not left the kids with them very often. Instead, Jane's brother and his spouse usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close in age to ours. Last Sunday, my dad had agreed to babysit at our home while we attended an event since he was available, and most of Jane's other siblings live in different cities. When we returned home, we were met with a chaotic scene. Both kids were crying, my stepmother was yelling, and my dad was trying his best to calm everyone down. The situation escalated when Luke told my stepmother that he and our son were going to be the ring bearers at our wedding. In a fit of rage, she screamed that she would not allow it because Luke was not considered family. This outburst caused Luke to cry so much that his lip was split, and it quickly became clear that things had reached an unacceptable level. We acted immediately and banned her from our home and our wedding. My dad is furious about this decision and insisted that he will not attend the wedding without her. He has even convinced some of his family members to boycott the wedding by downplaying what my stepmother did, which includes my stepbrother, who blindly agrees with her no matter how many times I try to explain the full situation. Despite my family's pleas for us to reconsider, Jane and I are standing firm in our decision. Most of Jane's family supports us, but one of her aunts suggested that maybe my stepmother's behavior stems from feeling unwelcome in our family. I have reached my breaking point with my family enabling her toxic behavior. While I love my dad and genuinely want him to be part of our wedding, I am fully prepared to move forward without him if it means protecting my family. Additionally, we have taken serious steps to address the situation legally. After the incident with my stepmother, we took Luke to the pediatric ER the following day and collected every piece of evidence we could, including photographs of his injuries. We felt it was necessary to document everything after what happened. The situation has been complicated, especially since we had nanny cam footage documenting the events that unfolded. Some commenters were correct in their assumptions that my stepmother was not formally invited into our home. However, my father has rarely ventured out without her accompaniment for years, so we took necessary precautions. We never anticipated that she would engage in such a horrific act, but our mistrust in her ability to care for our children has always existed. The physical assault occurred off camera, but there is still some footage that captures the chaotic scene, my stepmother shouting loudly and Luke crying before and in the aftermath of what transpired. As a result of this incident, my stepmother now has a child abuse charge on her record, and we were determined not to let her escape the consequences of her actions. I also want to provide additional context and information regarding the entire situation. I will attempt to respond to some of the many comments I received, although the volume has been quite overwhelming. For now, I want to reassure everyone that Luke is doing okay. He was taken to the pediatric unit the day after the incident, and he had already been seeing a counselor. The traumatic events surrounding the deaths of his father and stepmother have weighed heavily on Jane, and she was genuinely concerned about how it would affect Luke. We have continued with his treatment and have been extra affectionate and nurturing, providing him with more hugs and reassurance than usual. While he remains understandably upset, there has been noticeable improvement in his emotional state. In an update titled, "Stepmonster got herself banned from my wedding," I want to express my gratitude to those who took the time to read and comment on my previous post. This past week has been incredibly challenging, but it brings comfort to know that others care. I may not be able to respond to every single comment, but I will make an effort to address some of them in this update. I want to clarify that both Jane and I have decided to go no contact with my father and stepmother. Since the incident, there has been minimal communication between us, and I have no intention of reaching out to either of them. My younger sister has taken on the responsibility of managing any communication. She fully supports us, though we are opting for low contact for the time being. I have chosen to adopt Jane's approach to dealing with those we care about. We are willing to forgive if my dad or stepmother genuinely understand their wrongdoings and offer sincere apologies. However, we will never forget what they have done to our family. For the foreseeable future, they will not be allowed near Luke or any other children we may have in the future, even if forgiveness is granted. Regarding my extended family, I noticed many comments suggesting that I should share pictures of Luke's face or the nanny cam footage. However, I am not very active on social media, and even if I were, I would not feel comfortable exposing my preschooler's injuries in such a public manner. The reality is that once something is on the internet, it tends to stick around indefinitely. I have also chosen not to share any pictures with my family unless it becomes absolutely necessary. It is worth mentioning that while my family has a strong affection for my father, many of them hold negative views toward my stepmother. She has had 2 failed marriages prior to being with my father, the first of which led to my stepbrother. He ended up cheating on his girlfriend to be with her, and my family had developed a fondness for that girlfriend, which further clouded their perception of my stepmother. From the start, she has exhibited controlling and manipulative behavior, often attempting to assert herself into the family matriarch role. One of her preferred methods for doing this has been taking over the planning of family events, reveling in the attention and compliments that come from such roles. Growing up, parties became a source of frustration for me because she always managed to make everything revolve around her, whether it was Christmas or my sisters and my birthday celebrations. Although most of my relatives felt sort of neutral about her, they were never particularly fond of her. When it comes to Luke, things are different. Most of my family members did not meet him until COVID-19 restrictions started to ease, and by then he was already 2 years old. Luke is a bright and lovable child, and because there weren't many other small kids in the family, everyone quickly fell in love with him. It seems my stepmother became upset when she noticed that Jane and Luke were embraced by the family so effortlessly, especially compared to her own experiences, which may have contributed to her resentment towards both of them. The situation has been complicated, especially since we had nanny cam footage documenting the events that unfolded. Some commenters were correct in their assumptions that my stepmother was not formally invited into our home. However, my father has rarely ventured out without her accompaniment for years, so we took necessary precautions. We never anticipated that she would engage in such a horrific act, but our mistrust in her ability to care for our children has always existed. The physical assault occurred off camera, but there is still some footage that captures the chaotic scene, my stepmother shouting loudly and Luke crying before and in the aftermath of what transpired. As a result of this incident, my stepmother now has a child abuse charge on her record, and we were determined not to let her escape the consequences of her actions. I also want to provide additional context and information regarding the entire situation. I will attempt to respond to some of the many comments I received, although the volume has been quite overwhelming. For now, I want to reassure everyone that Luke is doing okay. He was taken to the pediatric unit the day after the incident, and he had already been seeing a counselor. The traumatic events surrounding the deaths of his father and stepmother have weighed heavily on Jane, and she was genuinely concerned about how it would affect Luke. We have continued with his treatment and have been extra affectionate and nurturing, providing him with more hugs and reassurance than usual. While he remains understandably upset, there has been noticeable improvement in his emotional state. In an update titled, "Stepmonster got herself banned from my wedding," I want to express my gratitude to those who took the time to read and comment on my previous post. This past week has been incredibly challenging, but it brings comfort to know that others care. I may not be able to respond to every single comment, but I will make an effort to address some of them in this update. I want to clarify that both Jane and I have decided to go no contact with my father and stepmother. Since the incident, there has been minimal communication between us, and I have no intention of reaching out to either of them. My younger sister has taken on the responsibility of managing any communication. She fully supports us, though we are opting for low contact for the time being. I have chosen to adopt Jane's approach to dealing with those we care about. We are willing to forgive if my dad or stepmother genuinely understand their wrongdoings and offer sincere apologies. However, we will never forget what they have done to our family. For the foreseeable future, they will not be allowed near Luke or any other children we may have in the future, even if forgiveness is granted. Regarding my extended family, I noticed many comments suggesting that I should share pictures of Luke's face or the nanny cam footage. However, I am not very active on social media, and even if I were, I would not feel comfortable exposing my preschooler's injuries in such a public manner. The reality is that once something is on the internet, it tends to stick around indefinitely. I have also chosen not to share any pictures with my family unless it becomes absolutely necessary. It is worth mentioning that while my family has a strong affection for my father, many of them hold negative views toward my stepmother. She has had 2 failed marriages prior to being with my father, the first of which led to my stepbrother. He ended up cheating on his girlfriend to be with her, and my family had developed a fondness for that girlfriend, which further clouded their perception of my stepmother. From the start, she has exhibited controlling and manipulative behavior, often attempting to assert herself into the family matriarch role. One of her preferred methods for doing this has been taking over the planning of family events, reveling in the attention and compliments that come from such roles. Growing up, parties became a source of frustration for me because she always managed to make everything revolve around her, whether it was Christmas or my sisters and my birthday celebrations. Although most of my relatives felt sort of neutral about her, they were never particularly fond of her. When it comes to Luke, things are different. Most of my family members did not meet him until COVID-19 restrictions started to ease, and by then he was already 2 years old. Luke is a bright and lovable child, and because there weren't many other small kids in the family, everyone quickly fell in love with him. It seems my stepmother became upset when she noticed that Jane and Luke were embraced by the family so effortlessly, especially compared to her own experiences, which may have contributed to her resentment towards both of them. I cannot confirm that she was upset about not being the wedding planner. It seemed that she was also frustrated by the fact that she would have no role in the wedding party at all. She had tried to persuade us to let her officiate the ceremony, but that was not what we had planned. One of Jane's closest friends was offered the role of officiant about a year ago. My stepbrother was suggested to be my best man, but he showed no interest in that position, and by that time, I had already chosen my best friend for that honor. We also asked Jane's sister's daughter to be our flower girl. Although we promised Jane's 3-year-old niece that she could take part, her other niece, who is 15, does not know us well enough, so we decided against that idea. Additionally, she attempted to pressure us into allowing my dad to walk Jane down the aisle since her own father has passed away. However, we had already decided that Jane's eldest brother would fulfill that role, as I mentioned before. My stepmother was clearly disappointed that my family was not as involved in the wedding planning as Jane's family. She kept making remarks about how things would have been different if she were in charge, suggesting that my family's lack of involvement was a problem. Nevertheless, no behavior can justify being cruel to a child, especially if it stems from the jealousy I suspect. I have not spoken directly to my father lately, but my sister has been keeping me informed about his activities. Through her, I learned about the version of events my dad and stepmother shared with the rest of the family, which conveniently ignores the injury Luke suffered and the abuse charges. They suggested that Jane and I banned them from the wedding because we were annoyed with my stepmother, instead of revealing the truth of what happened that night. Explaining the real story was not difficult, and many relatives whom I genuinely wanted to attend the wedding have since reached out to apologize and have criticized my dad as well. Those who did not believe us or think we were overreacting have been told they are no longer welcome in our home. Most of these individuals belong to my father's generation, so I cannot say I was surprised by this reaction. However, it was disheartening to realize that they are so biased that they would choose to defend a woman they dislike despite her having harmed a child, all in an effort to please my dad. My stepbrother remains in denial, refusing to accept that his mother could cause harm to a child, despite the evidence we possess. I can understand his perspective. I have a strong bond with my mom as well. However, that does not mean I will overlook his ignorance in this matter. Because of his stance, he is also not welcome in our lives anymore. It is unfortunate, as we were close during our childhood, but I do not regret my decision. Jane has 3 other siblings, an older brother, a twin brother, and a younger sister, and I find that I am closer to them now than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they are understandably furious about what occurred and have been incredibly supportive of us throughout this ordeal. Jane's maternal family has taken Luke under their wing since she obtained custody of him, frequently checking in to ensure he is okay. By uninviting some guests who were not supportive, we managed to save some money. We have decided to use those funds to help Jane's cousin, who lives in another country and was unable to attend the wedding. We are covering her plane ticket so she can be there to celebrate with us. Luke has improved a great deal and is almost back to his cheerful self. The injury he sustained, a split lip, was minor and is healing, but it did not require any stitches. Recently, we sat down with Luke to explain that my dad and stepmother would no longer be in his life. Although he liked my dad, Luke understands that he is closely tied to my stepmother. He appears frightened, especially of her, but we are doing everything we can to ensure he feels safe. Both Jane and I have reassured him that he is family, that we love him, and that no one will ever change that bond. I am not particularly concerned about my dad or my stepmother attempting to attend the wedding, but we have taken precautions by notifying the venue and providing them with photos to prevent any issues. As it is better to be cautious than to regret it later. Some people have criticized my stepmother for being a hypocrite when she claims that Luke is not family. I agree with this viewpoint for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for her actions is that she feels unwelcome in my family. My dad has been trying to guilt-trip me into participating in all wedding-related events, but as I move forward, I am determined to create a day that is filled with love and support for all the right reasons. She plans by reminding us that, for as long as I can remember, the way he continues to make excuses for her is surprising. He doesn't seem to understand that he is just as guilty in this situation, which makes it a case of the pot calling the kettle black. It's almost ironic because Luke, who is involved, is from a family that has helped me come to the acceptance that, although I will always love my dad, it is no longer healthy or safe for me or my family to be around him. It pains me to think that my son will not have the chance to know his only living biological grandfather, yet I find comfort in the fact that he has two wonderful step-grandfathers who play significant roles in his life. For now, while I feel sadness about the situation, I also feel satisfied with how things have turned out. Complaining about my life feels unnecessary to me, even though it is chaotic. It is a beautiful chaos. I have a strong love for my fiancé and my children, and I feel fortunate to enjoy my job as well. We are happy, and I refuse to let anyone jeopardize that happiness. To address those who were frustrated with my previous posts where my censoring might have seemed excessive, I took the suggestion from Jane to tone down the explicitness of my writing. Admittedly, I am still getting accustomed to Reddit and may have taken the advice a bit too far, but I hope this will be my final update on this situation. I will keep you informed if there are any new developments. Thank you for your ongoing love and support, it truly means a lot to me. As for my family and my children, I want to begin this update by acknowledging that I may not meet everyone's expectations. We are coming to grips with a disappointing reality. It appears that SM is unlikely to face any serious consequences for her actions, maybe just a small reprimand. Jane and I have been discussing our next steps with our lawyer, but we are still unclear on how to proceed. It's too soon to make any decisions, so we are trying to remain patient and not rush into conclusions. I am relieved to share that we are starting the process of applying for a restraining order against SM. We are utilizing the same evidence we collected in the week following the incident, which includes nanny cam footage and photographs of Luke. This will be our main focus for now. I still have not spoken to my father, and my sister is in a low-contact situation but is seriously considering cutting ties with him entirely. She is the only one in our family who still engages with him, and he keeps asking her for updates about me. According to her, he seems annoyed that half of his family refuses to communicate with him, yet he fails to understand why. I told my sister that she does not need to act as a messenger between me and our father. I never requested that, and it clearly burdens her. She insists she'll stop when it feels right to her, but I worry for her well-being. There is absolutely no doubt that SM attacked Luke. He mentioned it as soon as we got home, and my father inadvertently confirmed it in a failed attempt to justify her behavior. He never tried to conceal it from us, and the fact that he provided Luke with an ice pack is the only positive action I can attribute to him in this situation. Meanwhile, SM was too preoccupied with yelling about how Luke was behaving like a brat to deny the truth. It's interesting to note that SM is younger than my dad. She is also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend, whom he started dating when I was about 15. My stepbrother is only a month older than me, and SM is turning 50 later this year, having had my father's child when she was just 21. They got married a year after that. Both of our children are managing relatively well despite everything. Luke is back to his playful self, running around the house in his Superman costume when he has no other activities to occupy him. Although he has had a few nightmares recently and has asked to sleep in our bed several times, we do not mention my father in front of him. He continues to see his counselor. Our 14-month-old son is making progress too. he has picked up 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is excitedly trying to teach him how to say his name. Jane's sister is coming over for a couple of days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month, and we are all looking forward to it. Luke can't wait to see her, and Jane is eager to enjoy some drinks with her. I can understand the excitement, as we hope her visit will bring some joy to our household. Both Jane and I are struggling, neither of us is feeling our best right now. Jane is usually the one who tries to keep everyone's spirits high, but even she is finding it tough to stay positive during this challenging time. She is typically the kind of person who prefers to keep her negative emotions locked away, choosing not to share her struggles with others. However, during the week when the incident occurred, she found herself crying herself to sleep almost every night. Witnessing her in such pain truly breaks my heart, and I can't help but feel a heavy weight of guilt resting on my shoulders. There's a part of me that tries to reassure myself that I had no way of knowing that SM would act in such an awful manner, but that realization doesn't alter the reality of the situation. I allowed my father to be around my children without supervision, fully aware that SM would likely tag along. This is the most intense guilt I have ever experienced, and it is hard to imagine that I will ever forgive myself for what has transpired. Despite everything, Jane seems to be making progress. She has been encouraging me to consider seeing a therapist. I have never truly engaged in therapy apart from visiting a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like the right moment to explore this option. This week, I received a few unexpected messages from people suggesting that I should forgive my father and SM and even consider inviting them to our wedding, which is not happening right now. The truth is, I am not prepared to forgive SM at all, and my feelings towards my dad have shifted to a tentative, maybe, at best. Understanding what she did is something I will never fully grasp or forget. Though the wedding is currently the least of our concerns, we are not considering postponing it. We did think about altering the date, but the one we settled on is nearly the only one that works for most of our guests. We have given all our vendors passwords and clear instructions to communicate only with us, ensuring our plans stay private. Jane's family is larger and closer, which is why they are more involved in the wedding plans than my own family. Nonetheless, I do have family participating. My sister is serving as one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mother will walk down the aisle with the rest of the wedding party. Going through all these challenges with Jane has deepened my understanding of just how much I love this incredible woman. I couldn't imagine a better partner with whom to start a family, and I find it hard to envision my life without her. Rather than driving us apart, this ordeal has brought us closer together, for which I am immensely thankful. I probably won't be providing further updates until after the wedding unless something significant occurs. I extend my best wishes to everyone during this time. In an unexpected turn of events, I encountered my father and SM for the first time since the incident involving my child. Although I hadn't intended to update again before the wedding, the situation demanded attention due to its importance. The good news is that we successfully obtained the protection order, but the unfortunate reality is that both Jane and I had to see SM and my father at the court hearing. This marked our first encounter with them since we expelled them from our home over a month ago, and neither of us felt eager about this meeting. We arranged for Jane's brother to look after the kids, so at least Luke wouldn't have to face them. The hearing itself progressed far more quickly than I had anticipated. I must acknowledge that my father displayed at least some level of intelligence by recognizing that they stood no chance of winning this case. There was substantial evidence stacked against them. Not only did we have footage from the nanny cam, but we also had Luke's medical records and photographs. Furthermore, my sister had meticulously compiled every text and email SM had sent her and our family regarding the incident, along with recordings of SM's phone conversations. Unsurprisingly, they didn't even bother to hire a lawyer for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against SM, barring her from coming within 500 feet of us or our property moving forward. We plan to change all our locks this week, and I am even contemplating changing my phone number for added security. I have to confess, the moment we walked out of the courthouse was the first time I felt safe since this entire ordeal began. Jane was on the verge of tears from joy when we reached the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with Bill and his family to celebrate. Later that same evening, my father called. He mentioned that the order does not extend to him, which means he can still contact us. At that point, Jane and the kids were already in bed, so I decided to answer the phone, even though I didn't expect him to suddenly change his mind or offer an apology. I thought I might give him one final chance to address things. He attempted to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to cut to the chase and get to the point. He proceeded to ask me about the protective order and its implications. He asked me whether the order I had placed was really necessary. I made it abundantly clear that my stepmother, whom I refer to as SM, would never be allowed near Jane or my children again. I expressed my relief that I hadn't needed to formally document this decision, as every excuse he made on behalf of SM was easy for me to dismiss. He mentioned that she only hit him once, but I countered that one incident was more than enough for me to draw the line. The safety and well-being of my children were my top priority, and I firmly believed they needed their real grandma in their lives, not someone who had no rightful place in our family. I emphasized that their real grandma was my wife, Jane, and I expected him to respect that fact. I pointed out that SM had previously attacked Luke, which showed a blatant disrespect for my family within our own home. I felt that I owed her nothing, especially not my respect. Following that, he launched into a lengthy rant about family and how SM had been a blessing to both him and my sister since she entered our lives. In response, I started listing every instance I could recall where she had lied, overstepped boundaries, or behaved unreasonably around me, my family, and my sister. I reflected on both my childhood and adult life, recalling specific examples that demonstrated her disruptive behavior. This included her attempts to take control of pivotal moments in our lives such as our wedding plans, the birth of our son, Jane's baby shower, and my sister's graduation from college. SM's obsession with a picture-perfect family was also a point of contention. Her disrespectful attitude toward Luke was equally unacceptable. I made it clear that I remembered how she used to go through my and my sister's belongings when we were younger. While those incidents might seem trivial compared to other serious matters, they persisted until my sister moved out of their house just 3 months ago. We suspected SM had discovered details about Jane's wedding dress appointments by snooping through my sister's planner while she was away from home. Some of the memories I shared with my father were long and difficult to explain, but they helped reinforce my stance that SM was insignificant to me. When he tried to use her feeling excluded as an excuse for her behavior, I firmly shut him down. I told him he had the chance to protect his grandchildren, but he chose to side with his toxic wife instead. This led me to conclude that I wanted nothing more to do with him. I hung up without a goodbye, feeling a sense of relief. Afterward, my sister informed me that he had called her too, and she told him she would also be cutting him out of her life. It felt like we were both coming to terms with the fact that our father was unlikely to change. It was a painful realization, but it was clear he had made his priorities known, and his children and grandchildren were not among them. This situation has left a lot on my mind. Now that these memories are fresh, I am considering sharing some stories that I reminded my father of during our conversation. However, I know that this will take time. For now, I am wishing the best for everyone involved. In an update, I want to mention an incident regarding my stepmother's attempts to interfere with our baby shower. As I mentioned before, I had thoughts of sharing some stories from my past experiences with my stepmother prior to my confrontation with her and my decision to sever ties with my father. There are numerous stories worth telling, but one of my sister's favorites stands out in particular. My fiancée, Jane, discovered she was pregnant in June 2021. We decided to announce this joyful news to our immediate families in August. Initially, my stepmother showed little to no interest in our pregnancy. I was not surprised. After all, her response when we announced the pregnancy was to question Jane if she was sure the baby was mine. Even my dad reprimanded her for that remark. Instead of focusing on us, she seemed far more concerned about my stepbrother, who was also engaged and was expected to have a baby soon. This indifference actually worked in our favor, as it meant she wouldn't be involved in our plans. Planning the baby shower turned out to be a challenge. Both Jane and I were busy with work until the holiday season, and we wanted to be actively involved in the preparation. With the due date set for February 2022, we opted for early January for the baby shower. To help us organize, we enlisted the assistance of 2 planners, my sister Laura, who had never been named before in this story, and Jane's best friend Nina. Jane and I are generally easygoing individuals, so we did not want a huge party that would require a significant financial investment. We were trying to save money for both our baby and our upcoming wedding. We had already decided that the baby shower would be co-ed, which meant it would include both men and women, and since it was January, we figured it would have to be held indoors. We created a guest list that included 25 adults along with about a dozen kids. The idea of a pizza party for the baby shower came to us one evening as we sat together. Jane, Luke, my surrogate son Bill, and I have enjoyed homemade pizza nights every week since I moved in, creating a special tradition. It felt natural to bring this fun concept into the baby shower plans. Nina quickly found a great event venue that had a pizza oven, which was perfect for our theme. Laura played a crucial role in blending the classic elements of a baby shower with our pizza theme. The plans we came up with were fantastic. Guests would have the chance to make their own pizzas, sip on non-alcoholic drinks, and kids would have plain bodysuits to decorate as they pleased. Laura did an incredible job mixing pizza decor with baby shower decorations and even found pizza-shaped sweets to add to the festivities. The overall look might have appeared chaotic at first, but they managed to pull it all together beautifully, and we were all delighted with the vision. By the middle of November, most of the planning was done. However, shortly after, my stepbrother's fiancée abruptly left him to return to her ex-boyfriend after being together for 4 years. This sudden upheaval was both shocking and painful for him, leaving him heartbroken. At the same time, my stepmother realized that the grandchild she had envisioned would not arrive as soon as she expected. With her son's milestones no longer to focus on, she turned her attention to mine. Almost overnight, she transformed from a distant relative to an excited soon-to-be grandma. She started sharing her enthusiasm on social media with posts about her new role, which included tacky promotions and, Nana, shirts, everything you might expect from someone who was suddenly swept up in the thrill of it all. At first, we were too preoccupied with finishing our work projects and preparing for the holiday season to pay much attention to her behavior. However, it didn't take long before she began to pester us about organizing the baby shower and also a gender reveal party. We firmly decided against having a gender reveal party, not because we look down on those who enjoy them, but simply because we preferred to wait until the birth to discover the baby's sex. My stepmother even suggested we find out the gender and reveal it as a Christmas gift to her, but we declined. We also rejected her involvement in planning the baby shower. She then spoke to my father, who convinced Laura to let her join the planning as she was living with them at the time and didn't have much say in the matter. She arranged to meet with Laura for coffee, and although I was absent from that meeting, Laura shared the details with me afterward. Before Laura and her could even mention their pizza party plans, my stepmother jumped straight into hers. Laura described how my stepmother pulled out a large, shockingly thick binder from her bag with, "Oh baby," printed on the cover. The binder was filled with colorful tabs and fabric swatches, showcasing her extensive planning efforts. Although the section for her baby shower ideas was shorter than the others, it still took a significant amount of time for her to detail what she envisioned for her one and only baby shower project. Laura later sent me pictures of her ideas, and I must admit, it looked like an Instagram-ready baby shower. However, it was also impractical and clearly expensive. The decor was overloaded with balloons, oversized teddy bears, giant alphabet blocks, and cringe-inducing signs everywhere. My stepmother was focused on creating a visually stunning event rather than a cozy atmosphere, leading to uncomfortable seating and fancy food options that looked unappealing. Most of these food items featured soft cheeses, which Jane couldn't eat. The color scheme was dominated by different shades of pink with gold accents. While we would have been fine with a pink-themed baby shower, the execution felt unbalanced. My stepmother's pictures gave off the impression that Barbie had thrown up all over a Hello Kitty birthday party. When my stepmother's idea of an all-female, child-free gathering with upscale catering came up, it became clear that none of our family members were included in her guest list. Notably, neither mine nor Jane's mothers were considered, and she even suggested party games that nobody seemed interested in playing. The one consensus we reached was that the party would be held indoors. For a while, Laura and her were not given the opportunity to showcase their plans until my stepmother had finished laying out hers. Once they were able to share, they explained that while they could incorporate some of her ideas, they had already committed to the pizza theme. My stepmother protested, but Laura firmly pointed out that they were being generous by even offering to include some of her concepts since the shower was just a month away, and we had already approved their plans. My stepmother even called me in an attempt to sway us to change our minds, but I simply echoed Laura's stance on the matter. I just recounted their words, emphasizing how my dad had discovered that he couldn't attend the baby shower, which meant he lost his chance to weigh in on any decisions moving forward. As the holidays approached, the entire topic was dropped, and my stepmother, or SM, seemed to be all right with the idea of a pizza party. Nina, my sister, managed to combine some of the pink decorations she had wanted with matching blue items and even included one of the large teddy bears that added a playful touch to the theme. Fast forward to a week before the baby shower, Jane, who was nearly 8 months pregnant at the time, had everything purchased, and all the guests had already RSVP'd. Preparations were falling into place, and the shower was planned to kick off at 7 p.m. On the day of the event, SM volunteered to arrive at the venue early to set everything up, and Laura, my other sister, agreed to this arrangement mainly because she knew SM would complain if she was not given the chance to help out. The venue permitted them to drop off their decorations ahead of time, which made organizing much easier for everyone involved. Jane and I promised to arrive by 6 p.m. to assist. However, just 2 days prior to the shower, the venue called Nina to share some surprising news. It turned out that SM had stopped by to deliver large, heavy boxes filled with what she proudly referred to as a little surprise. She had informed the staff that she planned to arrive at 3:30 p.m. to begin setting everything up, which raised immediate concerns since the venue was only reserved for their use after 4 p.m. SM had previously reacted poorly when informed that all of the party decorations were still at Nina's house, prompting her to call Laura to check if they had left anything with her. Fortunately, Laura, being both clever and accustomed to dealing with SM's antics, drove to the venue the next day and inquired about SM's boxes. When she opened them, I learned that although she wasn't surprised by the content, she was still taken aback by SM's boldness. The boxes were full of pink frilly decorations, including signs, balloons, placemats, and nearly every other item that SM had originally shown to Laura and Nina. It quickly became clear that SM's intention was to arrive at the venue earlier than everyone else to set up the baby shower she had envisioned, effectively forcing us all to celebrate in what Laura called Barbie hell. As Laura and Nina discussed what to do, they realized neither of them would be able to arrive at 4 p.m., which made it likely that SM would take over the party. They considered the straightforward option of simply throwing everything away, but Laura came up with a different plan. That evening, she called both me and Jane, suggesting an exciting mission. Hey, want to destroy a party in 2 hours? The following day, Laura invited SM to join her at a salon, fabricating a story about having coupons. SM eagerly accepted the invitation, and they arranged to go right after SM finished her setup at 4 p.m. The next day, when SM arrived at the venue, she efficiently completed her decorating by 5 p.m. I have to admit, the woman works fast. Once she left to meet Laura at the salon, Laura texted Nina to confirm that the coast was clear. At that point, Jane, Nina, and I headed over to the venue. When we arrived, we were greeted by the sight of the baby shower SM had prepared. To give a brief overview, I won't dive into specifics, but I will say the decorations were overwhelmingly pink, to the point that it almost made Jane feel nauseous. For the next 2 hours, while Laura was entertaining SM at the salon, the three of us got to work. We swiftly dismantled every piece of decoration SM had put up and replaced it with the decorations meant for the pizza party. We set up the activities, organized the tables, and neatly packed every pink item back into SM's boxes. It turned out to be quite enjoyable, and we finished just minutes before guests started to arrive. By the time SM returned, a handful of guests had already shown up, so I hardly noticed her all night. Laura later told me that when they walked in, SM's jaw dropped in disbelief as she tried to process what had transpired with her carefully planned decorations. My sister simply smiled at her and whispered, "Nice try," before turning her attention to help Luke customize a bodysuit for the baby. Overall, the baby shower turned out to be exactly what we had hoped for. Our friends came, everyone enjoyed themselves, and we had an abundance of pizza, which was the main focal point. I paid little mind to SM as she spent most of the party sulking in a corner. Nina caught her attempting to add little pink bows on top of the cupcakes, but she quickly put a stop to that. I genuinely credit Laura and Nina for rescuing the event from SM's unyielding plans. After the shower, SM's interest in our baby seemed to dwindle significantly. She stopped wearing her Nana shirts, didn't visit us at the hospital when he was born, and completely refused to engage in anything related to him afterward. When my son was born, he didn't even acknowledge that he was a boy until weeks later when she finally met him. Up until we decided to go no contact, she was a very loose definition of what a grandmother should be. I feel incredibly grateful knowing that my son will never have to know her. The baby shower was scheduled for 7 p.m. This timing was the only option that worked for everyone involved, including the venue, which had already been booked for the morning. We needed the extra time to set everything up. At the shower, Luke was the only small child present, all the other kids were at least 9 years old. Additionally, several parents left early, and even though it wasn't a child-focused event, we had prepared for everyone we invited. Unfortunately, not everyone on the guest list was able to attend. In a recent update, I can share that my stepmonster is no longer in our lives, and I believe this time it is for good. After being engaged for over 2 years, Jane and I finally tied the knot last Saturday. We are still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we will adjust in time. The wedding was fantastic. The kids had a great time, our extended families finally met each other, and we danced so much that I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his role as ring bearer very seriously, walking down the aisle hand in hand with my son. Though my aunt ended up getting quite drunk and had to be wheeled out in a wheelchair, something I had expected, everything else unfolded as planned. It has now been 4 months since the major argument with my stepmonster, and things have been mostly quiet since then. I wouldn't have it any other way, except I wouldn't mind if it were completely silent. However, life doesn't always grant us what we wish for. I never truly worried about my stepmonster showing up at the wedding. After our argument, it became clear that she was legally forbidden from coming close to us, and we made it abundantly clear that if she tried, we would call the police immediately. A friend of mine urged me to take certain safety precautions, most of which I followed. As expected, my stepmonster did not show up. I firmly believe that investing in security was a wise decision, so I have no regrets on that front. My stepbrother and I exchanged happy birthday wishes, and he even reached out to Jane on her birthday back in June. This has been the extent of our contact during these months. He understands that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My father has stopped trying to reach me, we haven't spoken since April. He is still attempting to communicate with my sister for reasons I don't understand, but she is ignoring him. Shortly after she went no contact with him, they had a significant argument over the phone concerning my stepmonster's treatment of us throughout the years. Insults were exchanged, and painful subjects were brought up, with my father siding with my stepmonster on almost everything. Afterward, my sister called me in tears, and while I contemplated calling him to yell at him, she advised me against it. Right now, she is doing okay. Although she hasn't blocked him, she no longer answers his calls or responds to his texts. He has sent her only 3 messages, a weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a lengthy rant after neither of us acknowledged Father's Day. Despite our many differences, he is still our father. I love him and always will, but I can no longer be around him. While I have closed that door, I haven't locked it completely. He is aware of what needs to happen if he wishes to have his family back. I doubt he will take the necessary steps, but if there is even the slightest chance he might, I would consider reopening the door just a crack. This approach is Jane's suggestion. I tend to be less optimistic than she is, but perhaps holding on to some hope is important. Jane has not forgiven either my father or my stepmonster. She has always been very protective of Luke, making it no surprise that this entire disaster shook her. Part of me was afraid she would blame me, but instead, she called me a dumbass when I shared my concerns. I have been in therapy for a few months now and have found it more helpful than I expected. I have come to realize that my stepmonster's behavior toward me as I was growing up was much worse than I had previously thought. It feels wonderful to finally be able to express my feelings. At this moment, I couldn't be happier because I just married the most amazing woman in the world.